honest motivation. And I often give my background. Started training when I was in Florida, following an accident. I was rear-ended by a drunk driver. Good medical, background story is that I ended up with two bulging discs in my lower back. Doctor said I needed to work out to avoid surgery, so I started working out. So there was definitely cause and reason, to start at least adhering to some sort of weight resistance program, right? But in all honesty, the honest motivation was a day I'd gone to the beach with some friends of mine. We got to the beach. All the guys took their shirts off. The guys had been working out for a while. I guess they didn't tell me that we were going to start working out. And so, like, right then and there, I was like, yo, I want to go to the beach and I want to take my shirt off because, like when I was there, like I felt insecure. So when I'm training people, I always like to ask, what's your honest motivation? I remember once I'd asked a client, before we gotten started, what's your honest motivation? And she said she wanted to be healthy. And I was like, well, watch what you eat, walk around your neighborhood 4 or 5 times a week, and you'll be healthy. But then, she made a face and she paused, and I was like, all right, so let me ask, was it more so you got out of the shower one day, the steam cleared from the mirror, you looked at the mirror, saw yourself, and you saw a version of you that you didn't want to see or you didn't want to be anymore? And she was like, well, yeah, that's it, Frank. I was like, exactly. So that's your honest motivation. So that's the reason, when I'm asking you to do your workouts and log your workouts and log your foods and things like that, your honest motivation is that reflection of you that you saw that you no longer want to be. Because, I find it that people will go the health aspect, I just want to be healthy, this and that, but it's easier to give up on a goal that isn't really your goal. It's easy to deviate from a plan that you don't see any reason for it. Just being healthy is not a reason to go to the gym or to your workouts from home or to do any of that training if the intent is not built on an honest goal, which is always the honest motivation. And I always tell people, if you're gonna work out, you got to have a reason, right? So it's even when you're doing exercises, you know, um, I train my clients based on the actual contraction and the stresses on muscle fibers. What I call reps. And my reps are the stretch and contraction of the muscle fibers of the group in the muscle group that you're working along its full range of motion, right? Basically, just using the muscle for the exercise that you're doing to improve that muscle. And so when doing exercises, I'll ask, just to make sure that they're getting the form, I'll ask, when did you feel it? Did you feel it? Things like that. If they say no, then I'm like, well, how many reps do you think you did? And they're like, well, I did, all, 10 to 20 reps. Well, then how did you move if you don't feel it in the muscles? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, listen, muscle dictates movement, and there is no movement without intent. You have to be focused on the goal at hand. So it's like if you're doing, a back exercise, you don't want to focus on doing the exercise. You want to focus on contracting the muscle fibers that are needed to do that exercise, because you can't improve an exercise. You can't improve machines and cables and bands and things like that. You can only improve you. So you have to focus on you when you're working out. And that's true with anything that you do, your honest motivation, in any situation that you're in. If it's job related, if it's your home relationship with your family, things like that, there has to be an honest motivation for any of those things to actually work if you want them to, right? So it starts with being honest with yourself, and I think one of the things that helped me when I first started working out was I was honestly able to tell myself that what I was doing wasn't working. I worked out, you know, even though I had my honest motivation, I wanted to go to the beach, take my shirt off, things like that. But I worked out for a full year And I got absolutely, like, there was no change at all. I was still the same size. Like, there was no difference in me at all. But instead of just continuing to go, I made a change. I was like, okay, this is going to work. And to be honest, the change I was going to make was I was quitting. I was just going to give up. I was at LA Fitness, back home, Oviedo, Florida, and I'd gone in to cancel my membership. It was exactly 365 days after I had started my membership. Went to the LA Fitness, played a little bit of hoop. I was getting ready to leave. Passed by a childhood friend who I hadn't seen in years, and he was just a specimen. Like, I wanted to look like him. So I just asked him, "Hey man, what have you been up to?" He was like, "Man, I just work out." I was like, "When?" He was like, "Every day." I was like, "What time?" He was like, "Around this time." I was like, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow." And I started working out with this guy every single day. But, had I closed my mind to what my honest motivation is, then I probably never even would have said anything to him about being able to work out. I probably just would have, just had the basic conversation that you have after seeing someone that you haven't seen in years. Hey, how's it going? How have you been? And you keep it moving. But no, my honest motivation was still there and was still very real to me. So when I saw someone that I believe could help me get there, I stopped. Hey, how can I get to my honest motivation? Which was my real question when I was asking him, when do you work out? Things like that. The intent behind my question was, how can I get to my honest motivation? How can I reach my goal? That was a good friend of mine, Chris Perkins. And, from that, I developed a love for the gym. I learned to be consistent in the gym. And, like, probably 6, 7, 8 years later, I was a professional bodybuilder. So I went from being 140 pounds underweight to now a pro bodybuilder, men's physique division, because I had stayed true to my honest motivation. All right, so that's episode 1. We're going to call this of the Make It Make Sense podcast. This has been your boy, Frank Hamilton. Remember the motto, it's going to be grinding or be nothing. I'll have that worked out in the next segment. I trust. Episode 2, I won't make that mistake.